Hey guys, what's up? It's MagLev Cubing, and in today's video I'm going to be comparing every new Skewb on the market in 2022. So let's get into it. A couple things before we get started. I want to say that this is one of my best videos I think I've ever made. I've put so much effort into it, so even though it's kind of rare, I ask you guys to maybe share and like this video if you enjoyed it. If not, I don't care. And yeah, I'm going to be going over the weight, the size, and the performance of each puzzle. And if they do have adjustment features, I will talk about those as well. So yeah, let's get into it. Starting off with the oldest of the flagship Skewbs, we have the GAN Skewb. This is the enhanced version. I do want to mention this is an Ansgtrom setup. However, I have tried the original version. This cube comes in at a pretty good price at $33.99, and the Ansgtrom version, if you're interested, is like $44.99. The cube itself weighs about 81 grams, which is a pretty light but still hefty Skewb. It doesn't have any adjustable magnets, but you do have the adjustable core settings that GAN has. I'm not going to showcase those. The turning on the Skewb, very light, and it feels very stable due to the corners having those core magnets. It's honestly a really good Skewb, and it's definitely considered to be the top Skewb in most markets. Next, we have the oldest of the newer batch of Skewbs. We have the XMan Wingy V2. This is a pretty light and very kind of nice turning puzzle. It has that concave shape that a lot of people like, and it does have adjustable tensions and magnets. The cube comes at a pretty light 67 grams and retails for about $23.99. Next, we have the RS Skewb. This is MoYu's budget magnetic Skewb. However, it is going to be on this list because it's pretty good in terms of performance. It's a flat-sided Skewb, but that shouldn't stop you. It comes only at $10, which is a really good deal, and it does have an adjustable tension system, the traditional MoYu system. And it comes in at the lightest of the Skewbs, 66 grams, which is really nice if you get tired quickly. Lastly, we have the newest Skewb on the market, the MoYu Weilong MagLev Skewb. This cube is a pretty nice turning puzzle, has pretty good performance. It comes with purple internals, and it is MagLev, and you can adjust the magnets and tensions. And it is a little heftier than the other Skewbs. However, I think this does work in its favor because you get more momentum with the turns. And overall, it's a pretty good Skewb. Now let's talk about corner cutting. This is the GAN Skewb, which I think has pretty good corner cutting. It has pretty fluid turns. I'm not really good at corner cutting Skewbs just like that, but it does pretty well. This is the Wingy V2. It's a little rougher, but it still works pretty well. Corner cutting like that on Skewb is pretty awkward, but I hope this kind of showcases it. This is the RS. Pretty snappy, but it cuts through. And this is the Weilong, which I would say has the worst corner cutting of them, but I wouldn't say that's a hindrance because in my opinion, you don't really need like excellent corner cutting in Skewb. It's all about like the fluidity. Let's talk about the feel of each puzzle. Starting off with the GAN, it has a glossy exterior. This is the non-UV coated version, but the grip is still pretty good. Plastic feels pretty high quality. Overall, a nice feeling puzzle. The Wingy V2 has kind of a same glossy finish. I think it was a little more matted when it came out of the box. Feels pretty good in the hands. The concave shape is a little weird, but since I use mostly flat Skewbs, but overall feels pretty nice in the hands. The RS Skewb, I would say, feels the cheapest of all of them, which makes sense. It's the $10 Skewb, but still feels pretty nice and hefty compared to even like the Weilong M, which came out in 2018. And the Weilong Skewb, to me, feels the nicest in terms of plastic. I really like the kind of plush and rounded feel it has, and it was just really, I like kind of like the matted finish it had out of the box. It wasn't really like a frost, but more matte, and I really like that. It's kind of worn away because I've done a couple solves on it. So yeah, so now that I'm done with that, I'm going to record some footage of solves with each of the puzzles and then explain more on the performance aspects of each puzzle. So just a quick disclaimer, I wasn't the best in solving
this morning. I just wasn't really getting good times, and it was also my first solves of the day, so I want to make that clear. I do average faster than this, but the footage was good, so I just kept it in. So let's go over the first puzzle, the GAN Skewb. And like I talked about in my 2021 video, it's a really good Skewb. It hasn't really gotten worse. It's actually gotten better. I will say, to add from my last video about the GAN Skewb, the corners do break easily. I did have to buy 3, but I think that may have just been the wave of Skewbs I was getting, or the batch. Just because the other Skewb, the new Skewb I'm using in this video, hasn't broken yet, which is really, really nice. As you can see, this is the Ansgtrom setup, and I talked about this at the beginning of the video. The Ansgtrom setup makes this puzzle just so much more enjoyable for me. Now, I did have the original model, and it worked just as well, but I do think the Ansgtrom setup does help it a bit. Things to like about this Skewb. First of all, the corner cutting's pretty good, but you don't really notice it during solves. You're not cutting how I showed you in the corner cutting section. It's more about the fluidity, and the fluidity is good. The corner magnets keep it very stable, and it also really, really just has its speed. Some people say it's too fast, and that's why I recommend getting the enhanced instead of the standard, because I think if you had the standard, it'd be too flimsy and fast. The extra magnets do help with that. Now, some of the downsides is I know it is a little heavier than the other Skewbs. However, I don't see this as a problem, as the Skewb itself just has really good momentum when turning. So to me, it's not that big of a deal. So overall, I would say this is still one of the best Skewbs on the market. If you're willing to pay the price, and you really like Skewb, I definitely would recommend this puzzle. For people who don't want to spend that much on Skewb but want to get into the event, there's other options better there for you. So I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of the solves. Skip to the next timestamp for the Wingy V2. So now let's move on to the Wingy V2. So this is one of the more hyped up Skewbs and one of the more talked about Skewbs of the newer Skewbs on the market. And I have to be honest with you, the feeling is good. The performance is pretty decent, but I cannot recommend this Skewb. This Skewb is just way too unreliable. So let's talk about why. So first of all, at least for me, when you get into the more advanced stages of Skewb, you don't really need that concave grip system. In fact, I would say it even hinders you a bit because it's just sharper edges, so you kind of hit your fingers on more pieces, especially like executing Z perms and H perms. And the biggest thing with this Skewb that I really need to address, it pops so much. And I know this sounds kind of weird, but it just, like almost every 20 solves or so, as you can see right here, it just decides to pop. I don't know if this is just my Skewb, but I've heard it happen to other people, and I just find it so annoying to use. It's so unreliable, and it's really disappointing to me because I was a big fan of the Wingy V1. The turning of this Skewb is great. The adjustability of this Skewb, the magnet adjustability is pretty good, especially because it's a stable Skewb. You can make it faster. I think the problem is the tensioning system. It has the same tensioning system as the Tornado V2. However, the design doesn't allow you to make it actually tighter. It just makes it feel tighter. And I think that's a problem with this Skewb. And even though you can adjust the screws, Qi doesn't recommend it and didn't design it that way, which is also an issue because it also influences people to do it and they may strip the core. So overall, for the price, I can't really recommend this Skewb. It does turn well, I'll give it that. But in terms of the pops and just not it performing as good as other Skewbs, I cannot recommend it for its price. So enjoy the rest of the solves of this one, and we'll move on to the next Skewb. All right, so now we're talking about the RS Skewb, the new little buddy to all the other Skewbs. So why do I have it on this list? Because it performs well. Like all the other RS Cubes that I've tried, it's just a really, really solid puzzle for the price. For $10, you get an adjustment system, which is already my favorite adjustment system in any of the 3x3s. I like MoYu's dual adjustment system. It just performs really, really well. I will say the plastic is cheap and it doesn't corner cut the best sometimes. I also think the magnets are a little strong on this one. But this is definitely, especially for the price, just an acceptable Skewb. There's nothing really inherently wrong with it. It performs well. It corner cuts well. I think for any beginner who wants a Skewb, this is just the one to go for, because non-magnetic Skewbs don't really turn well. They're a little too clicky and catchy with the ball bearings. A $10 Skewb doesn't really put a dent in the bank. It just performs well. For advanced Skewbers, I think it could be a good viable option for you. I know it is a bit slow, and I've tried to speed it up, but it just gets slow. I think it's due to the magnets and just how it's designed. But other than that, it's a really, really good performing Skewb, and definitely for beginners, I recommend it. So enjoy the rest of the solves. So now we're in the point of the video why I even made this new comparison. The MoYu MagLev Skewb. And I'm going to be the first to admit it. It's not the greatest out of the box. I will be honest. It's a little lackluster out of the box. You do have to play with the tensions. You do have to play with the magnets. Once you do that, though, this Skewb is almost as good as the GAN. And I know that's a little controversial. I know a lot of other cubing YouTubers who've tried the Skewb say it's not as good as the GAN and it's not as good as the Wingy V2. I think it's better than the Wingy V2 with setup, and it almost competes with the GAN. Now, here's why I put it at the same par as the GAN. It's a lot cheaper, and it performs almost, if not just as good. I think the problem with this Skewb is I think if it had core magnets, it would probably be my new main. I think the lack of core magnets doesn't make it as fluid as it should be. But in overall Skewb, this is just one of the best Skewbs I've tried in a while. It doesn't corner cut as well as other Skewbs, but the fluidity and even the speed is just perfect on this Skewb. This Skewb, since it's MagLev, does not slow down, which is amazing because I do have a problem with that in most Skewbs. The fact that it is MagLev allows me to turn confidently knowing I'm not going to slow down or speed up too much in a turn. And it also allows you to play with different lube setups as you're not going to worry about the lube slowing down the puzzle. With break-in, this is such a good cube, and I think I have a pretty well-rounded opinion on it. I've done an average of 1,000 on it. It's just a really good Skewb, and for most people, I would say you get adjustable magnets, you get adjustable tensions, and for the price of $20, it's just really, really good if you want a good flagship Skewb, but don't want to pay over $30 for one. And now the Cubicle, I did see release premium version of this Skewb. I would definitely recommend those if you don't want to set up a Skewb yourself. Overall, this is just a good Skewb. So enjoy the rest of the solves, and we'll get into my final thoughts.
So let's go over my final thoughts for each Skewb. So if you're on a budget, just go with the RS Skewb. It's only $10. It has the adjustment system. I wouldn't say it's the best, but I would definitely say it's better than some other Skewbs on this list. For $10, you're getting really, really good performance. It's a little cheaper in filling, but that's really okay, especially for a beginner Skewb. This is a really good Skewb for the price. Now let's go on to the category of the one I do not recommend, the Wingy V2. The Wingy V2 sucks. For the price, for the instability, and the fact that you have a risk of it popping every single solve, I cannot recommend this enough. I can't recommend this at all. So the thing is, I would say the only way you would get this, if you want good turning and you like the concave fill and you're not going to like personalize Skewb as your main event, I could see you getting this. But if you just want a concave Skewb, while it's around, just get the Wingy V1. It's definitely not as good performing as the Wingy V2, but it's a lot more reliable, especially if you just want a concave Skewb. So those are my opinions on those two. Now let's get into the top two. So these ones I think are very equally matched, and I know a lot of people won't agree with that. Like I said, if you really are planning to be good at Skewb, but you don't want to pay $45 or $32 for a Skewb, get the MoYu MagLev. After setup, it's really good. It does have its catching issues, but overall the flow of the puzzle and the actual maintaining of speed is amazing, and I can't recommend this enough if you're willing to put some time into it. But if you just want a good Skewb right out of the box, not to play with anything, just get a GAN Skewb. I wouldn't say the standard. I think the standard's a little too unstable, but the enhanced is definitely really, really good. And of these two, I think I'm going to stick with the enhanced just because it's a lot more broken in. But I think if I had to, I could still perform pretty well with this in competition. So that's basically it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I definitely put a lot of time and thought into this video. And that's basically it. So leave a like if you like this video. Subscribe if you want more content in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.